Today I'm going to pose a simple question. What's the deal with Vind and why is it so unpopular? As some of you may know, Vind is my favorite race in Rogue Lineage and is the main characteristic of my channel. I do believe that I'm an advocate for Vind's supremacy, yet I do think it deserves some changes in the current meta. I'd like to explain how Vind functions in both Gaia and K in an attempt to convey why the majority of the community views Vind as underpowered. Starting off with some important game information, let's dive into what this race is and what it does in both an Ultra and Uber playing field. The Gaia version of Vind, the wildly unpopular one, starts off with some goodies on spawn. The first couple boons that these purple parasites get after wiping are intrinsic buffs to specific spells and health regeneration, mana, in addition to the unique toolbar skill Tempest Soul. Some of the things they get are the 1.25 times damage multiplier to Snarvender, Sky Castle access without having all gems, and ability to get Gripple Mode and Scars on the face. Many of these buffs are a nice touch to the race, but are pretty unnecessary in my opinion. The ability to have Orderly and Mana are a nice touch to the class that align with the game's lore of the Sky Castle Vinds, but it's something lackluster they slapped on a couple races throughout the game's history. It's very similar to how Ashen starts off with Mercenary carry, which is nice to have, yet is accessible to anybody that has progressed. The first passive buff that Vind has is helpful in comparison to basic and common races, yet it contradicts some of the accessibility of Tempest Soul. Vind has increased regen at the cost of going Vampire. The only races that are available to publicly that cannot go Vampire are Gaian, all Scroom variants, Azael, Cameo, Fisherin, Dullahan, and lastly Vind. Vind has 1.1 times health regeneration in comparison to the flat 1.0 health regeneration of other races. The developer reasoning for disallowing Vampire play on several of these races is their infinite hunger, which allow easy regeneration without having to spend any hunger. But the only races that do not have infinite hunger bars that cannot go Vampire are Azael, Fisherin, and Vind. The majority of the community thought Fisherin Vampire was too strong, causing an eventual revoking of their Vampire permissions. This makes a lot of sense due to the community's distaste for the Fisherin dodges that can replenish mid-combo. In a similar vein, Azael would also be too strong with Vampire capability due to its resistance to all things fire, which are very destructive against fanged foes. But Vind, does it really have anything that makes it this broken? In my opinion, I think that Vind Vampire wouldn't be that broken if they removed the increased regeneration. This leads us to the unique ability that Vinds have called Tempest Soul. Tempest Soul is an ability that requires mana to activate and is considered a spell. I believe this also counts towards the healer progression, which requires you to have pretty much every basic spell. Not to get sidetracked, Tempest Soul can be activated with an M1 while you have mana charged. During this activation, the Vind player is surrounded by a wind-like particle and gets immunity to most spells. In the past, anything that had a type of element would be negated and with its damage reflected to the aggressor, but that has been changed. Currently, Vind can reflect curse spells like Ignis and Gelatus, as well as some elemental skills such as Lightning Drop or Ice Charge Blow. It is also the only thing that can really deflect Snap Snarvender. The secondary effect of Tempest Soul also improves Vind movement speed by about 1.2 times compared to base speed, which is 1.0 times. With some help from my moderator friend, I was able to compare the sprint speed with and without Tempest Soul. In the first clip, I'm running about 48 meters per second, whereas in the second clip, I'm running at 58 meters per second. It's a pretty big difference in speed if you ask me. Thanks Doc for the helpful insight. As for the functions of Tempest Soul, that's about it. In Gaia, this skill lasts about 10 seconds long and has a pretty long cooldown. The most annoying part about Vind is that it takes 50 days to progress in Gaia, which, in my opinion, is not very worth the 10 seconds of spell immunity. In K, Ascended Vind, the K version of Vind, Tempest Soul has the same function which lasts about 10 seconds with a 10-second cooldown. Nobody really complains about the K version of Vind, but Gaia Vind is a topic of conversation. Tempest Soul does a lot against mage players and Toma spammers because of their reliance on spells, which many rogue players do not like. So why do people think that Vind is underpowered? I was stumped, so I turned to the community to see why people thought that Vind was unpopular. Some things that were brought to me were the super long progression time of 50 days, the inability to become Vampire, the lack of things to deflect in Gaia, and one combos ruling the Gaia meta. This is definitely understandable due to this class being so rare, as well as it not being able to stand at the same level as other races. Despite being in the rarest category of rollable races, as a 1% race, Vind is not compared to Dazin and Fisherin in combat potential. Even races such as Dinakari and Navran, which are both 4% races, outperform Vinds by leaps and bounds. Sometimes I wonder why the developers made this race so rare if it's pretty situational, unlike Dazin and Fisherin, which are good at all times. Now that I've gone over the characteristics of Vind and popular community complaints, I'd like to share some ideas on how the developers could rework or buff Vind in a positive way. Alright, review time. Vind is a 1% race that starts with Mana, Orderly, and Tempest Soul. They also have immunity to Grippa mode and cannot get scars. They also get a 1.25 times buff to Snarvender and can go to Sky Castle with 1 gem. Everyone got that refreshed? Alright, let's see how we can rework this race in a creative way to allow more fun playstyles. Spawning with Orderly and Mana. Well, I think these passes on Vind are more of a lore thing, so I think that the developers should not really view it as something that could be changed. If it prevents Tempest Soul from being buffed, then they should definitely remove it. Not really sure why Vind has a ton of unnecessary stuff. The Snarvender buff. Vind gets 1.25 times damage with wind spells. That is very unnecessary and I believe should be removed if Tempest Soul or other Vind aspects are improved. It seems like a lazy type of buff that these developers put on Fisherin and Vind, which are also not fun to play against. Nobody wants to get hit with a spell that does too much damage already. Every single race gets a buff to a type of elemental spell, which I think is kind of stupid. I mean, I understand the Azael doing more damage with fire, but at this point it's kind of silly why things like Riggin get buffs to, I guess, ice spells. It sounds like a cop-out from the developers. Instead of adding anything unique, they just add these copy and paste things to different elements. The buff Calm Lineage. The inability to get Grippa mode while doing grips. You can still get Insanity from Illusionist or Evil Eyes. Honestly, this is a nice touch to have, but it could definitely be removed if Tempest Soul was improved. Another lazy jack-of-all-trades buffs that is not necessary unless it has full immunity. Faster regeneration. This is actually a very large topic of concern in the rogue community. Many players think that Vampire is solid in the current meta, so with the inability to eat Bloodthorns, it's quite weak. I think that the ability to go Vampire should be given to Vind if the faster regeneration of 1.1 times is reverted to the base 1.0 times. Tempest Soul. Okay, the largest complaint with Vind is how Tempest Soul works. As of now, it takes 50 days, which is way too much to max out and lasts around 10 seconds. It does reflect many spells, but I think they should lower the day requirement to 25 or even 15 days. This is the only racial ability that requires mana to use, which makes it bad against certain classes. Right now, it's not very useful because it's very easy to bait out and it has a pretty large cooldown. Players can just use weapons instead of spells, which is pretty much a better trade-off than fighting Dzin or fish dodges. The developers could easily buff Tempest Soul with a couple changes. They could lower the cooldown of 50 days, and they could definitely change the requirement to have mana to use the spell to make it a bit more viable. I came up with a couple more ideas myself. Some ideas I have for a unique buff to Vind could be an Awakening or Tempest Soul M2. These bonus values would be unlocked at day 50 if Tempest Soul maxes out about day 25. My first idea of Tempest Soul M2 is called the tag idea. In the anime called Naruto, there's a character called Minato who can place these tags on people and can teleport to them at will. My idea incorporates this into Tempest Soul. Instead of teleportation, the Vind player could lunge out and place a tag on somebody or something, and could remotely activate Tempest Soul from a distance. If you click Tempest Soul on somebody or something, then click the M1 to activate it, it could activate the Tempest Soul effect on the person in the size of a Trahair, preventing them from using spells at a distance. This would deflect every type of spell. If I place it on a mage, they cannot cast Fear Blitz, they cannot do anything. Or inversely, it could explode and launch a player it's stuck to, sending them far away without dealing fall damage. This could be used in interesting situations to stick to the floor and detonate to allow fast movement. While a Tempest Soul tag is stuck on somebody or something, the Vind player will not be able to cast Tempest Soul on themselves, allowing a fun risk and reward playstyle. Again, the cooldown could be the same. Personally, I would prefer this as a rework because it would be pretty fun to play as in K, and they pretty much have this coded in ABA with Minato and Hisoka. I made a little animation showing how the remote reflection type of tag would work, so check that out. As you can see, you click M2 to place the tag on somebody and then click M1 on Tempest Soul to activate it. They cannot cast anything. Now here's the clip for the detonation type of tag. Pretty much just sends them away. You could put this on the ground and send yourself up or away from somebody. It's not going to do fall damage, it's just going to push people away. Obviously, if Vind were to be buffed in this way, they wouldn't have both. They would either have one or the other. This is just an idea. It's like instead of having the remote reflection, they could have something that pushes people away. It's just an idea. So I've noticed that all of the 1% races have defensive type of moves, such as Fisherin dodges or Dzin dodges, so I thought, hey, we could do something similar for Vinds. This is another move in the toolbar that I've come up with called Woeful Zephyr, which activates. You click it with your M1, you don't need mana or whatever. it has a pretty long cooldown. So pretty much this does a visual activation, something above the head or something on the Vind, so people will know that it's active, which, first of all, I think that the Zen and Fisherins are kind of broken because you get an audio cue, but you don't have a visual cue that they're actually dodging. So I think that a visual cue on the Vind would be pretty sweet. So pretty much, the Vind has this halo or whatever's over their head. If they get hit a couple times, if they get hit 3 times, it's going to activate. And on the 3rd hit, it doesn't matter if they're in a combo, it's going to blast the enemy away. It's going to do the same damage as Bard, where it pushes away with a blast of air, and it will break the combo free. You may think this is pretty OP, but while the Woeful Zephyr effect is active on you, you cannot use Tempest Soul. So pretty much it is, if they hit you 3 times, it will push the target away. This is good for escaping infinite combos, which I believe would be balanced if it has a long cooldown. During the cooldown of Woeful Zephyr, you can use Tempest Soul, but while the halo effect or visual effect is active on you from Woeful Zephyr, you cannot use Tempest Soul. Here's an animation I made that shows off how it works. So use M1 to activate the effect, and if you get hit 3 times, it will push the target away. It doesn't matter if you're in a combo, it's just something for defensive. This can happen at any time. Let's just say I get hit, and then, I guess, 30 seconds later you hit twice more, it will activate then. Again, this is just an idea, so bear with me if it's a bit broken. Obviously, it could be tweaked to like 5 hits, get hit 5 times, then activates, or even like 10 hits or so. Anyway, that's my take on how Vind, my favorite race, could be changed and why the community does not like it currently. I hope you enjoyed it, and I may do more videos about other things I want to be reworked in the future. Please like and subscribe if you support my content. Thank you guys.
I miss the old Punchy, straight out of cash Punchy, dug it merge Punchy, on his grind Punchy. I hate the new Punchy, the low views Punchy, the always lose Punchy, selling in twos Punchy. I miss the meek Punchy, helping the seas Punchy. I gotta say, at that time I'd like to meet Punchy. See, I invented Punchy, it wasn't any Punchy, and now I look around and there's so many Punchy. I used to love Punchy, I used to love Punchy. I even had the taped up headset, thought I was Punchy. What if Punchy made a video about Punchy? Gotta miss the old Punchy, man, that'd be so Punchy. That's all it was, Punchy. We still love Punchy, and I love you like Punchy loves Punchy.
No, don't say that. You sound more, you fucking retard. Lower down, okay.
He's gonna do it. He's actually gonna do it. You know he's gonna do it.
Bro.
Hoda's dead? From the dead?
Oh my god!
He
died?
Jesus died!
No!